Is that showing up okay for everyone? Just change this so that I can see the chat area too. It's not letting me see the chat. Is there a trick to that?
If you click on the chat and then kind of drag it across, you should be able to watch it at the same time, but I can keep an eye on it for you and let you know if any questions come up too.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's not yeah, interesting. Zoom just keeps giving me fresh screens, but that's all good. I'll kick off. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. I'm so glad that there are more people interested in cutting their waste like I am. Sometimes it feels like you're definitely a minority, or you're maybe pushing against the status quo a little bit. So it's nice to see you guys in here today. So I'm Ash. Let me just go across here. I'm Ash. So I'm a self-proclaimed waste warrior. Oops, hang on. So I'm self-proclaimed. I'm taught essentially. I'm not a sustainability expert. I'm just passionate in this area. I studied journalism originally. I've been working in PR and communications ever since then. And this is just something that's been, I guess, sort of a side hobby or a passion of mine. I started a blog, Shift, back in 2016 to share, mostly it was highlighting brands that were doing good things. And then it started to be more about my own journey in cutting waste and finding more ethical and sustainable ways in different parts of my life. And I thought it might benefit others. So there's a lot of links in this presentation as well. I've kind of created it to be a resource that you can come back to. There's the last slide is chock-a-block full of links to help you continue on after this webinar as well. So hopefully it's helpful to you. And I also am the co-founder of a group called Plastic Free Gold Coast. It's a community-based organisation, obviously based out of the Gold Coast. I started with them when I was living down there for a little while, and I just continued on when I moved back to Brisbane. And we host all sorts of events, not just about plastic pollution, but about, we do DIYs, panel talks, including about the future of food and climate conversations. I hosted a podcast with them last year, different events like that. I'm not sure if there's something similar going on in Brisbane, but there's always a lot going on in Brisbane anyway. So, and by day, my role is with the Finders Keepers, which is a marketplace for makers and designers. We do online and in-person markets around the country. So I won't linger too long on why should we care, because I feel like if you're here in this webinar, you already kind of care and you already kind of know some of the reasons why maybe we should care about cutting our waste. I just thought I'd put up a few stats which just get me every time. It blows my mind the amount of clothing and textiles that we chuck away, and that's just as Aussies. 6 tonnes to landfill every 10 minutes is pretty gross, and 23 kilos a year. I just can't even really fathom that. And up to 312 kilos of food per person per year too, considering so many people are still, struggling with food security in Australia, not just in underdeveloped countries, but in privileged countries like Australia. And it's just, it's costing us so much money. I mean, we will touch a bit on food waste in this as well. And of course, plastic and plastic waste. A lot of what cutting waste is about in this webinar does focus a lot on plastic, I suppose, because it is the hardest to recycle. We know it takes the longest to break down. It's resource intensive to produce, but it's pretty gross too that we've now found microplastics in human blood and lungs. So if that doesn't motivate you, then I'm not sure what else will. A couple of positives down the bottom there. I think the reason I called my blog Shift is I feel like we are in this transition period, and I think that we are shifting already towards more sustainable systems and regenerative systems. And I think why not jump on at the front and be leaders in this movement towards reuse, a circular economy, the use of things rather than owning things, and also, of course, helping to diversify our economy and supporting more than just the huge corporations, but supporting some of the smaller guys too who are doing really cool things. So why else should we care? I guess is coming into more the more personal or selfish reasons, I guess, is there's the potential to save so much money and also time, which I've found has then given me more time to do the things that I want to do. So I haven't lived this way for most of my life. It's only been some of my life, but I still feel that during that time, and I do have a slide coming up of an example of some of the dollar savings that you can make by cutting out the disposable things and replacing them with reusable, or you may already have the reusable alternative that doesn't cost you anything anyway, and that way you can save so much more money. And that for me has meant that I've been able to work less. I work fewer hours in the week. At the moment, I'm working a four-day week. And that doesn't mean that on my 5th day I'm furiously DIYing all my things. It's just meant that over time I've been able to, I guess, use that for volunteering, for even doing things like this, for doing the plastic-free Gold Coast stuff, for working on my blog and sharing ideas, I've recently started doing dance classes again. So just different things like that. And these are some of the examples that I've experienced. And of course, I've loved, meeting more people like yourselves that are in here tonight, who actually give a damn. It's really quite motivating meeting other people who really care about the future and are not just, I guess, sort of somewhat blinded to, what's really going on and thinking about, future generations. And I feel like for me, Food Connect has played quite a big and good role as well. I was a city cousin for a little while when I was living over in New Farm. I had to move, and so I had to end that. But that was a great way to also meet like-minded people. And I also feel like with Food Connect, you're contributing, I'm assuming a lot of you are Food Connect customers, contributing to a better food system by, we get to meet the farmers through the newsletter every week, and we're getting photos and updates on emails, and it's just really cool. So I wanted to start also by maybe debunking a little bit of a myth. So just because I personally have cut my waste a lot, it doesn't mean that my recycling bin is full to overflowing. I haven't needed to upgrade to one of those huge Brisbane City Council yellow lidded bins, because actually the point is reducing your recycling as well, and we'll get into how that's possible. A lot of it comes down to reuse and avoiding things to begin with. I wanted to share, I've got this little bit of political, let's call it propaganda. I actually thought it was pretty well put together, from a communications perspective, except that recycling is not a circular, it doesn't mean a circular economy. And I wanted to really point that out. So, and I've got links for this at the end of the presentation too, so you can do some more reading. So recycling actually begins at the end of a product's life. So we've already used it, we don't need it anymore, we're discarding it and hoping that it will be turned into something else. There's my dog in the background, turned into something else useful. It might be the same thing again. It might be glass into glass, glass jar into glass jar. That's not necessarily the case. And also the difference with the circular economy or circular design is that they start from the beginning and they plan out the waste, the concept of waste to begin with, which to me is really cool. And I think is really the way we need to move forward. So I think remembering that recycling, of course, at the moment is necessary. Don't not do it. I think we all need to do it, and still a lot of people need to do it more, because we're probably not quite recycling enough of the things that do have another life. And there's so many recycling streams now, not just through council, but through other organisations like TerraCycle. I'll get to that a little bit down the track. So I think we can be recycling in the meantime smarter and more responsibly, but it is by no means a solution. So I've just put in here, and these are linked as well. So when the presentation's shared at the end, you can click through and see these little case studies. They're from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which their core business is about the circular economy. So there's a few examples there in terms of circular design in food waste, in lighting, in fashion, and in the reselling of fashion brands as well, and them taking charge of that, which is pretty cool. So I feel the best way to, aside from all that, that beginning stuff, I think it's probably best to start with the 5 R's of reducing waste. So of course, you guys have probably seen this before or something similar: reduce, reuse, recycle. I mean, I feel like I've heard at least some iteration of that since my childhood, when we were taught, not to litter and to recycle more. But I feel like it's definitely important. The refusing to begin with is, I think, one that maybe gets skipped over a little bit too much, maybe in the mainstream. So we'll go through some examples of what I've done in each of these 5 R's, and then I'd love to hear from you guys as well as to what you're doing yourselves. Maybe you've had some recent wins. Maybe you've written to a brand and they've written back. Maybe you've got some challenges, you're just really not sure how to cut out something in your life. There's no way that you could go, not use something, or it comes in all this packaging. What can you do about it? I'd love for this to be interactive too, so please do add some questions or speak up towards the end. So I feel that it really is about simplifying. So thinking about what do you actually need in your life. And I guess to me, it comes back to less stuff and more experiences. And I think that comes back to also saving time and money. You're able to, really appreciate more of that stuff and foster those relationships, and maybe take more holidays or work less or retire earlier. I just think all of these things can lead to some really good, some really positive changes in your life. It's not just about having less in your bin on bin night. Definitely not about depriving yourself. I think at first I was sort of like, oh, what am I going to do about such and such? I really love eating a packet of chips or whatever it might be. Since then, also, by the way, there's compostable chip packets, which is really cool. But it's just about getting clarity on what you do really need in your life, and what you're consuming, and maybe where is that coming from, and what are the toxins in it. If that can help you make the decision as well, if you decide that it's not really the best thing for you. So starting with refuse, I guess the big question to ask is, do I really need it? These are some easy wins, I think, to start with as well. So refusing junk mail. I see, you might not see that. Oh, this picture's not coming up, sorry. You might not be able to see that sign very well. I see it around my neighbourhood a lot. It goes beyond the no junk mail. It says, is helping me reduce my waste underneath it. I'm not sure where to get those stickers, but they're pretty good. And also letters. Get your bills, get your statements, get your updates, records, or reminders. Get that on either direct debit or email, text, phone call, whatever it is. We don't need the extra paper. I mean, I know that it is compostable, recyclable, all of those things, but it's just the use of the resource to begin with is not really necessary. Business cards and flyers. I feel like also, with LinkedIn and with things like that, there's really no reason. I mean, business cards are a little bit, probably, I feel, a bit outdated now, especially if you've met someone, in a professional context. You've got your mobile right there. I mean, we all carry it with us at all times, really. So there's not really any need. Saying no to freebies as often as you can is a great place to start. So those supermarket collectibles that are just going to end up in landfill, no matter what they say, whether they're made from 30% recycled plastic or whether they're recyclable plastic, it's still eventually all just going to end up in landfill. Pens and notebooks and things. So for me, I just I now go to shop shops and I get the kids like exercise books, and I just the plain lined one or whatever I can find really, and I cover them in like paper that I've got from, you know, maybe something that you buy online, or someone's given you something wrapped in paper and you can just use that. Pens and things, also op shops. A lot of these things can be easily avoided or replaced with something else, perhaps secondhand, or maybe you've already got it. I don't think I'll ever need to buy a pen again, because I've probably taken that many freebies over my life that I've probably got enough stationery. I also thought I'd put in there's obviously the standard, you know, straws, bottles. Of course, there's paper straws now everywhere in Queensland because there's a ban on single-use plastics, including plastic cutlery and straws. And of course, they're mostly paper now, which are also compostable. But I still feel like if you really don't need a straw, it is, again, another resource that we can, you know, avoid taking in the first place. The picture that was there is of an acai bowl in one of those bio cups. You would have seen them. They look like clear plastic. They've got the green sort of line around the bottom. There's other brands that do it too, but that's the most common, and it'll say bioplastic on it, made from, I think, cornstarch or plant-based materials. They are compostable. I do have a friend here in Brisbane. She runs a semi-large scale sort of a small farm composting business where she gets waste from cafes and she composts it and then sells it back, and sells the compost and things like that. And she says that they take ages to break down. She didn't tell me how long, but they sit in these hot piles of compost for more than a year, I think, at least. And they're just, again, we're in that shift phase, but I think if you can avoid that to begin with, and we'll go through some ideas of how to as we progress, that's probably the best way, I think. Refusing unethical and unsustainable businesses, just thought I'd add that one in. That's probably easier said than done sometimes. There's someone looking up. I feel like someone's audio just turned on. No, I'll keep going. Sorry, Maria. And refuse to take no for an answer. So when you want to use your own reusable cup, reusable container, whatever it is, try to refuse to take no for an answer. Sometimes that can be hard, but I think if we don't say what what we care about, and this is the way that we want things done, businesses and corporations won't know that that's what we want. Also, an easy way, if they say no, is to just dine in and use a beautiful ceramic cup in the cafe. Here's a few things that I've refused, and it usually, it obviously leads to reuse, being thrifty, using what you've already got, what you can find around you, what you can get secondhand, and needing less. So my water bottle, which I've got here too, I've had for many years now. It actually was originally painted. That was a mistake. And there is a way to get the paint off once it starts chipping too. So let me know if you need that tip. Keep cup and water bottle is essential. Saying no to wrapping and wrapping paper and excess packaging. Saying no to the to wrapped vegetables, the produce bags even at markets or at the supermarkets and things like that too. I've already showed you my notebook idea. I think I managed to get cheese in my own container once. That was a proud moment. I have been declined at Coles and Woolies. I'm not sure if things have changed since then. I generally just don't shop at their delis and try to go for small businesses if you can. They're often more likely to be okay with it too. Yeah, how much do you want? And especially if you've already got the weight on your container, makes it so much easier for them. And they often don't bat an eyelid. Same with when I started bringing my own container or bag to the bakery. I've had comments like, I wish more people did this. This is such a good idea. So it can be really nice to get such good feedback too. And most small businesses are really on board with it. Refusing, I refuse as much as I can beauty and skincare and, you know, personal care products that are wrapped in single-use plastic, instead choosing to make my own, which we can get into a little bit later too. And this up here is a little box of using up beauty and skincare and personal care and dental products that I think some of Mum's stuff's in there too that I already had. So it's not about chucking it all out and starting again, not buying all the eco products and just going, oh, I need to just have a clean slate and start fresh. The best thing you can do is use what you've already got. So this leads us into reducing. And over here on the left, there's some good questions to ask when you start out, when you think you need to make a purchase, I guess, especially, you know, a bigger one, or even something like a personal care product. Do I really need it? How long will it last? Has it been made with quality materials? What will happen at the end of its life? Is there a way? Is it potentially compostable or biodegradable? Will it break down and not leach chemicals? Will it end up in landfill? Is there a take back program? Is there a recycling system that exists for it? And also, of course, supporting businesses that are reducing too. So if you have a bakery that accepts your bread bags, or, you know, a cafe that readily accepts your keep cups, or even incentivize you bringing a keep cup, which I see some cafes flip that on its head. They'll give you, it's the standard price if you've got a keep cup, and it's more if you don't, which is a nice way to sort of, it's a small act of activism, which we'll get to a bit later too. So investing in things to last, voting with our wallets is, I think, the most powerful thing we can do as consumers. So every day, most days we're buying things, whether it's a loaf of bread or petrol or whatever it is that we need. I think by voting with our wallets, we're showing that, I mean, as the founder of TerraCycle says, for every item we buy, think of 2 more replacing it tomorrow. So that's signifying the demand for that product. Oh, people must want this. One's been bought, let's make more. For every item we don't, think of one that decreases the demand. Think of one less, you know, being made and appearing on the shelf tomorrow. Putting secondhand first has been such a big one for me on this journey as well. Not only does it save you so much money, it is a game changer in terms of cash, but also you can find some really cool things. And by shopping secondhand, you're automatically reducing the virgin materials that it takes to make things, and of course packaging. So when you think of you know, a big ticket item like a couch or a fridge, it comes in a huge box with all the styrofoam around it and those plastic strappy things, and then the plastic padding around each leg and stuff. By buying secondhand, you're avoiding all of that and then wondering what to do with it when you get it. Multi-purpose, all the things. This really could be anything. I'm a big fan of a good backpack that can also be used, while you're traveling, while you're hiking, on the weekend for a picnic, as a handbag, generally day-to-day, things like that. Multi-purpose everything. I also think of this spray bottle I have of diluted vinegar and water, cleans pretty much everything in my house. I can't think what it doesn't clean. It's probably not great. Oh no, it's good for glass too. Vinegar is pretty much great for everything. It does the toilet, it does the kitchen benches, the mirrors, the sinks, and I sprinkle a bit of, where's my bicarb? I fill up bicarb in a shaker. This is an old peppercorn shaker that's got the holes in the top, and that pretty much does everything with a scrubber and a cloth. So there's lots of ways to think of how, you know, things can be used in multiple ways. Reducing your reliance.
Sorry, we've got a question there. Do you take cherry tomatoes out of the plastic tubs or have a supplier offering them loose? That's from Jess.
Oh, cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes, lately I've been getting my stash from Food Connect, and every time I order Food Connect, I put in the comments, in the checkout, you can put comments, no plastic, please. And so they always come for me wrapped in a little brown paper bag, which is great. But also the best way to get cherry tomatoes and things like strawberries and berries, all the little things that usually come in punnets without that packaging, is at farmers markets. So I should have put up a picture. There was this beautiful big basket, and it was just scoop your own cherry tomatoes, and pretty much every farmers market I go to has that. So you can easily bring your own bag and do it that way. But I do kind of like the idea of leaving the punnet there in the shop. I'm sure a lot of you saw The War on Waste on ABC. There's been a few seasons of it. And they did a bit of that as a little bit of a guerrilla sort of form of activism. So showing that, hey, we don't want this. I'm going to leave this in the shop. We don't want this packaging. I'm just going to take what I need. And you know, it's kind of a little bit of a activism act there too. But ultimately, of course, as I said, reducing your reliance on products in packaging. So another one that comes in a punnet is sprouts. And so I started doing my own. Of course, Food Connect do them as well often, and they'll come in a brown paper bag. But I do have a little bag here too that Food Connect sent recently with some microgreens in it. Some of you also would have got this. And I assume with Food Connect that most things that they send out are going to be compostable. They're not going to be fossil fuel based plastics. They're going to be bioplastics and things. But I wasn't sure about this little window thing in here, and it's lined with a plastic liner. So I was like, what do I do with this? Can I compost it? I'll keep it for this webinar so I can show you. So actually I found there's a name of the packaging company on the bottom. So I sent them an email. I haven't received anything back yet, but I just wanted to say, it'd be great if you put on there, this is a compostable product, because you can see on their website that it is compostable. It's made from plant-based materials, but it's not obvious to the consumer who ends up with it at the end. So it's little things like that we can do to show brands how we would like them to change for us as well. And also DIY is a lot of is an easy way, or is quite a life-changing way to reduce your waste as well. So I DIY things like, this is my little deodorant tin, or this is actually my travel version. So it's such a simple, like this takes 2 seconds. My mum started doing it not long after me as well, or I'll do a batch and then she'll have some too. And it's such a simple way to cut down on not only weird things like aluminium that they put in, store-bought deodorants, but it's so cheap. All the ingredients are in your pantry, so it's bicarb again. Corn flour, which this is my shaker bottle for dry shampoo. Use the same corn flour or tapioca or arrowroot, interchange any of them, with an oil of your choice. Coconut oil is good because it solidifies more, but I just refill jojoba oil, which is great like for your skin as well. That's 3 ingredients. You can chuck in some essential oils if you want, but that's all it takes to make that. And I should have done the calculations for saving on deodorant, but that's a big one, not to mention, of course, the aluminium. So DIYing all sorts of things can really help you reduce your reliance on packaging. Cleaning, I already mentioned that. Cooking, so things like I couldn't get crackers that weren't wrapped in plastic, so I tried a few recipes for like just dry crackers that you can then add cheese to or dip or whatever you wanted. DIY clothing if you're that way inclined. If you have a sewing machine and the means to do it. DIYing anything around the household, before you go out and buy. And the shift from ownership to usership is a great one as well. So there's all sorts of initiatives like toy libraries, tool libraries, buy, swap, sell groups, things like that. With Plastic Free Gold Coast, we've hosted a few clothes shops which have been really popular. So people pay $5 or $10 for a ticket. They bring 5 items. Everyone else has brought 5 items. You get tokens, and then you shop with your tokens, and you move around. And it's a great way to meet like-minded people. I've hosted one myself in a workplace before. We just did it on our lunch break. Everyone got so excited, and then the rest of what we had was donated to Dress for Success, which help women and men dress for job interviews and things like that. And then also with Plastic Free Gold Coast, we donated the rest to an Australian company that are doing, I'll mention them later, that are doing some great things in textile recycling and textile waste. So here's just a few more examples of things I don't buy anymore and what I do instead. So I've got a link down the bottom here of the things I don't buy anymore blog that I did a couple of years ago, because I'd started making a list in my phone just to keep track of all the things that I just didn't need anymore as I was simplifying. So a few examples of things I've replaced. So we've got, I make a tooth powder, again, which is only a few ingredients, and you can find those in bulk as well, especially if you're living in Brisbane. I get a lot of the personal care bulk products from Biome, the eco store. So there's a few of those dotted around, or if you buy from them online, they'll ship to you in things like glass and, you know, non-plastic packaging. Tea bags, and this is how I travel with my tea. If I'm going away for a little while, I'll take a few different types and I can just reuse them in little containers that I've accumulated over the years, or little jars or different things like that. Menstrual products, I've got a calculation of how much that can save you by switching to reusables as well in terms of dollars in a year. It's quite astounding. Things I don't buy anymore, again, yeah, beauty products wrapped in plastic and products, plastic packaging. Instead choosing to refill. I think in that photo she's refilling hand sanitizer, which is really cool to find in bulk, especially during the pandemic, because you're going through a lot more, and you can get that in glass, yes, but if you can get someone to refill it, that's even better. I don't buy wrapping paper anymore. My family all know this, and they don't give me wrapping paper either most of the time, or unless it might be paper and then we reuse it again until then it can be composted. But I tend to reuse boxes and things that I might get if I buy something online, or if my partner does. Or I think that one was when I got some new sunglasses, prescription sunglasses. That's the box they came in, and just using fabric scraps and different things like that, still making it look like you've put the thought in, but there's so much stuff already out there. Again, you can buy wrapping and bags and boxes from op shops too, so don't waste your money on the brand new price of those things. Fast fashion and cheap fashion and poorly made fashion, which all equals unethical fashion, I avoid at all costs. The only time I might buy something that's fast fashion is if I see something in an op shop and it ticks some boxes for me. It might be something that I've been looking for. It might still have good fabrics. It's there to serve its purpose, and also it's, you know, still keeping in rotation there by me taking and using it. Sorry, that other photo didn't come up. And shampoo and conditioner in bottles as well. I use that in bar form instead. There's tons of options on the market now for that, and they actually lather up really well and clean your hair just as well as from bottles. So some savings, I've just shared a few on here too. You can come back and have a bit more of a look at this, but by cutting out things like paper towels, napkins, tissues, replacing with rags, or, you know, stitching your own from fabric scraps for the napkins. Tissues I've gone back to using handkerchiefs, or, you know, to be honest, toilet paper if I'm just at home. Glad wrap, you can use things like beeswax wraps. I've made some of my own, or you can support small businesses that are making beeswax or vegan wax wraps. I used to buy sandwich bags. Why? I've got jars, I've got Tupperware containers, I've got metal containers, I've got beeswax wraps, I've got a bowl with a plate over the top. There's so many things, there's so many other things you can use, and you don't need those single-use items, I've found personally. You can save about $400 a year on menstrual products. That's a calculation I found online, which is pretty amazing. So a menstrual cup might cost you $40, $50, $60 up front, and it can last you up to 10 years if you take care of it well. And, you know, period underwear is another good example. There's more options for that on the market now, and they're getting cheaper. So that's another great option to save money. Cotton buds and cotton rounds. So again, using my finger, I don't know, what do you use a cotton bud? I can't even remember what you'd use a cotton bud for, like to smudge your eyeliner, I don't know. Cotton rounds, again, I'd use a face washer or a towel or a rag. A friend of mine actually crocheted a little cotton round for me too, which was beautiful. So over $600 on that stuff alone. That's just one example. So reuse. So we've already gone through a lot of examples of that. So a big part of cutting your waste is shopping for your food in bulk. So the example with the cherry tomatoes is one idea. So you've brought your own bag or container or whatever it is to get that from the markets. But for all my like pantry goods, all my oils, sauces, as much as I can, things like honey, peanut butter, all your flours, nuts, snacks, chocolate, tea, coffee. There's not a lot of things that you can't get, like all the, you know, pantry sort of items in bulk. So it's just about, I think, being prepared when you go to the shop. So if I'm going to the market or to the bulk food, have one big bag to begin with. If I'm going to the market, I'd have maybe a bread bag, like quite a big bag, and I just hand it to them and they don't look twice at it. I have a bag of bags. So in here, I've got a few more drawstring calico bags and maybe a few produce bags too, that sort of the netting ones, which I can use at the bulk food store too. I'd take a bunch of jars with the weight on the bottom. So this is an old peanut butter jar that's just keeps going in rotation until it might crack, or I end up with, you know, my partner buying too much peanut butter and then I give jars away when we've got too many. I'll take a few different sizes of jars, all with the weights already on. Otherwise, they'll do them in the store for you. There's plenty of options around Brisbane. I often go to the Source, or there's Flannery's, are the two probably biggest ones around the place. Tins and things like that for tea, just make sure they all have like a lid that closes well, and make sure they're clean and dry when you take them. Things like a bottle for oil and liquid things like that. And I've had the same spice jars. This is just like a Coles brand spice jar, but I've had this for about 6 years. I just keep refilling with the same spice. So reusing your calico bags, you can refill all sorts of things from wine to beer to milk in some places. I haven't personally found that yet, but I know that it's true. You can, I think in Tasmania somewhere if you're going. Refill my floss now. You can get a little floss jar and then you just refill the bit that goes in. Again, swapping and bartering where you can is a great way to reuse. So reusing clothing, there's great rental sites for clothing as well if you've got a special occasion and don't want to invest in something that you might only wear once. And all sorts of things you can swap there. And repair, of course, is a great one. So if you don't have the skills to repair yourself, then there's repair cafes. Look up a local seamstress or a handyman, or your mum or your dad or your uncle or whoever, and look for brands that are doing lifelong repairs too. Like Patagonia has probably been at the forefront of this, the American outdoor apparel adventure sort of wear. They will take back and fix anything for you for free. And stop paying that extra 15% for packaged items. I just thought I'd put that in there because that's ridiculous. Reuse anything and everything that you get. So that was a soy sauce bottle and I've refilled it with soy sauce again. No need for a new bottle. That is a bought jam drop from a bakery, and that is a tin that I already had. That is a beautiful display of bulk food. You can use their paper bags in the middle there or bring your own. That jar with the pickles has had everything in it, from my leftovers to my food scraps to ice cream to peanut butter to pickles to, I've had that jar for a long time and it does a lot of things. Refilling, that's a photo from Biome here with all these pump bottles. They've got all sorts of oils and butters, and they had essential oils. They've got all sorts of herbal things, so you can have a great time experimenting with your own DIY beauty products. I mentioned the sprouts before. They come in an annoying soft but hard plastic punnet, so get rid of that and just sprout your own. Alfalfa takes about 3 days. Refilling floss, and I always love those veggie chips to refill too. A few don'ts. I thought I'd put this in here. So I did this for a little while. I probably compromised my health or nutrition perhaps in terms of getting enough protein when I couldn't find things like tofu, like those high protein items, things like tofu and tempeh, not in plastic. So I was like, I'll just go with that and I'll just only eat like my protein source, would be legumes and pulses and things, so chickpeas and things like that. But it just wasn't enough for me. So I learned how to make my own tofu, which I don't do a lot, but I have done a couple of times. The Northey street markets, you can order ahead to the tofu people there, take your own container and they'll have some aside for you naked. They put it straight into your thing with some ice cold water. You can keep getting the rest of your stuff and then go home. But don't compromise on your health and safety and your nutrition just for the sake of cutting out packaging. So just do what you need to do. I said before, don't go out and buy eco products, use up what you have and use things up and then consider what you might replace. So plastic pegs, for example, once they break, which they probably will take a while still to break, then replace them with wooden or metal, stainless steel pegs. Don't be too hard on yourself, which is what I've had to come to terms with too when I was like going all gung-ho in on this. And I was like, no, I can't find tofu without packaging, so I'm not going to buy it. But when you do need to buy things in packaging, don't be too hard on yourself. Know that you're doing your best in so many ways. And there's a few sort of personal, health-related tips down the bottom there too. So a reusable mask in these times. You can recycle things like blister packs and other health and supplement, medical packaging. You can BYO your own bag and drink bottle and things like that to hospital. And look for compostable first aid things like I found home compostable bamboo Band-Aids, which is pretty cool. Recycle needs to go in there. As I said, we're in that shift phase. We still need recycling, but do it smart and be responsible about it. So this is a picture here of my mum's recycling station that she keeps on the bottom shelf of her pantry. She's divided it up all nicely into dental and beauty care stuff. She's got some pumps and different things in there. I think some corks and blister packs and different things like that. Where's mine? I have a box I keep under the sink and I've labelled on there I just put it all in one box. This is mostly for my partner's sake, so he can also know what to put in the box. Only little things, obviously, but yeah, bread tags, credit cards, all sorts of, you can recycle so many things through things. It's a lot through TerraCycle, really. They're the ones who are doing all those little cool, hard to recycle things. Through Biome is a great option for recycling all those little weird things. Check out their website for what you can recycle there. These are some great resources I've just listed. And also Brisbane City Council, their tips are not just tips. You can recycle almost anything there too, from styrofoam to paint to electrical goods. And that's an example of some of the things you can recycle at Biome. Plastic straws, stockings, bras even, blister packs, beauty products. You'll have access to all this at the end as well. And then the last one is rot. So for me, rot, number one, is composting. So I'm assuming that a lot of you guys, if you're Food Connect customers, if you're sort of that way inclined, if you're a gardener, you already compost. So we don't need to linger on this, but work out a way to make it easy and part of your everyday. So having a little compost caddy on your bench, or freezing the scraps and then taking it to community compost if you live in an apartment, using a worm farm, whatever works for you. And that's my dog Apple. It's empty, which she's having a little sniff in there. I've just installed her pet poo composter, which, pet droppings should be done separately to your food and garden compost in a separate part of the garden. But that's super easy to install, something like that, a bucket with some holes in it. You dig it mostly in, and you can dispose of their poop that way. I touched on this a little bit before, small acts of activism. So this is things like setting the demand and showing brands how we want things to be, what we want things to look like. So writing to brands, like I said, I did with this packaging, to say, is this compostable? What's it made of? In a nice way. You can even compliment them for what they're doing. Love what you blah, blah, blah. This link here is to a couple of examples that I've written, one to a brand about packaging and one about like supply chain and fashion, if you wanted to have a look at those and tailor them. Remember, you can vote with your dollar, and that's everything from food to your everyday purchases through to which power company you use, which bank you bank with, where your super is invested. That it all counts towards what you're telling these brands. I don't want you to invest in firearms and fossil fuels. I want you to invest in renewables and things like that. Get a free climate sign. So I've got this here too. I got this from one of my neighbours the other day. You've probably seen them around on fences. If you live in Brisbane too, I'm not sure if they're in other states. There's a couple of websites you can go to get those. They're all free. You can get bin stickers, bumper stickers, all sorts of things as well, if that's up your alley. Vote at election time. I don't know if I even need to say that. Please vote at election time. If you're wanting to find, and if you're a bit disgruntled with the major parties, look for a values-aligned independent who may be in your seat. So this links to a website called It Takes Three. It's a campaign saying we only need 3 more independents. Like, that will have such a big impact on the way government will sit going forward. So see if there is one in your seat. Otherwise, make an informed decision, based on how you'd like to vote, and look into their policies to see if they align with the future that you want. There's some examples here of how you can get involved too. Small acts of activism. You don't need to get out and join a march. This was me doing the School Strike for Climate a few years ago, which was really fun. That was my first march actually, and so that's probably fun. It's not usually something that I would do, so that's why I'd advocate for people doing these smaller acts of activism too. So writing to people and things like that. Think regeneratively, I think, is a big part of all of this too. So if you can, you've reduced your waste, you're doing what you can in your own life. Think about maybe how you can give back a little bit too as the next step. And of course, telling brands what we want as well is a great way to, to show that we want a regenerative system going forward. Supporting businesses like Food Connect, volunteering if you can. I joined a bush care group at the start of last year. Again, a great way to meet like-minded people, and I've learned a lot about native plants and also invasive species. In Brisbane, we always meet at the Tenerife bushland hill there. And Apple comes along and has a great time too. And it's just a couple of hours of weeding and planting natives. And it's such a great way to get out and get your hands dirty and actually feel like you're doing something and making a difference. I think, especially if you get a little bit of eco-anxiety, which I tend to sometimes. Donating time and money is good if you can as well. Supporting media and storytellers in this space, speaking about sustainability and regenerative thinking. Damon Gameau did the film 2040. He's got a new film out called Regenerating Australia, which you can see that's screening around community theatres at the moment. And of course, tuning into First Nations wisdom in this space. I just think we have so much more to learn in terms of regenerating the land through Indigenous wisdom. I've included here some clips which I have seen or found while I was researching for this presentation. So that's Regenerating Australia, the new film trailer from Damon, and 2040. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen that. Bayer Johnson is a great one in terms of reducing your household and personal waste. Unbroken Ground and We the Power are 2 short films by Patagonia. They're just really inspiring, showing future regenerative systems and things like that. And I'd love to hear anything from you guys. Again, as I mentioned at the start, if you had any specific questions like how to get cherry tomatoes without packaging, or if you've had a recent win, or if you wrote to your politician and they wrote back, or you wrote brand, I'd love to hear if you guys had anything that you wanted to add too. Have a drink in the meantime.
Sorry, Ash, there was one question in the chat that we skipped over a little while ago because you're on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt.
That's all right.
Do you have places that you recommend, to get cheese and coffee bag refills?
Coffee bag refills. When I was drinking coffee, I don't anymore just because it wasn't really doing much for me, but I know a lot of people do. My partner still does. I haven't tackled that one with him yet, but there is, if you go straight to a coffee roaster, who they usually have a cafe at the front as well. They're usually more than happy to refill your bag again, like those foil ones with the zip top, they're great to just reuse again, or take a tin. But I guess the foil ones are good, the foil plastic ones, because they've already sort of tared the weight for that. They don't need to incorporate more weight into what you're buying. So I used to go to a coffee roaster in Wollongabba called Black Sheep Coffee. They refilled without blinking an eyelid. I live around the corner from a Merlot, and they all seem to have like the big bulk beans on site. I haven't asked yet, but they sell those tins, and I feel like they're encouraging you to refill them. So I would go to somewhere that roasts beans on site. They'll usually grind them for you too if you needed. And what was the other one? Coffee and cheese? Cheese. I was going to a deli that was in West End that has since had to shut down the stores, which is next to where the Source Bulk Foods is. They've unfortunately had to close down. They do have a sister store in the Valley, James Street. Is it the Market Shed, not Market Shed, the big fruit and vegetable shop, and they've got a bakery and a florist in there on James Street. It's a bit bougie, but they do have a deli in there, and previously they have accepted my own container for things like olives, feta, different things like that. If you've got the weight on there, great. Otherwise, say, are you able to please tear my container first on your scales, and then they'll usually just put one of their stickers on your container as well, which are easy enough to peel off again afterwards. That's probably my best tips. I have found some vegan cheese in glass jars as well in health food stores, which is another way to avoid plastic. Yeah, that's probably the top tips for that one. Meat is a tricky one. The best bet though is to go to an individual butcher and ask them to put it straight into your clean, dry, lovely looking glass or metal, perhaps, rather than plastic container. Just because it probably looks a bit cleaner and welcoming to them, and it's easy for them to just go, oh, yep, they've weighed the meat on their scale and then they put it straight into your container. Again, small businesses are way more likely to say yes to this stuff. Not that that's a reason why we shouldn't go to the businesses and ask for things that we want, but an individual butcher wants your business, right? Otherwise, they know they're competing with Woolworths and Coles, who have a huge deli counter. So I think it's in their best interest to accept your custom. Any other questions?
Has anyone ever knocked you back before taking your own container?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I have been knocked back at Coles and Woolies. They just said something like, oh, it's not in our policy or something. And I was a bit timid back then. This is probably near the start. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get some like cheese blocks from Coles no. And they turned me down. I'm not sure if that's changed or if it's different at different stores. I probably need to go back and try again. But I suppose part of the journey for me has been moving away more from the big supermarkets and going towards supporting more small businesses too. So that's kind of part of the ethos behind that for me as well, is sort of spreading out. Instead of going to the supermarket with all the things, go to the baker, go to the butcher, go to the deli, go to the markets or Food Connect or the fresh produce store instead, if you can. I mean, it's not always possible, but we all get at least 2 days off a week to, run our errands and things. And I found also, I meant to mention before with the bulk food shopping, I actually really enjoy shopping now. I find it quite relaxing, even if I've had a busy, hectic day and there's been a lot on with work. Once I get into that store, it's like a slow and mindful sort of, like I'm scooping out brown turmeric into my container and I'm just like letting it all just, I don't know, it's just, maybe I'm a bit hippie in that way, but it's just such a more relaxing way to, rather than under like big fluoro lights and crowded like aisles. And you get to actually sort of make friends with the people that work there, and it's a bit more of a personal experience. Or you don't have to if you don't like talking to people, or if you don't want to that day, but it's just a nicer experience. And cups, a few people turned me down for keep cups during pandemic sort of times, and I just went back to them and said, oh, there's actually nothing in the state government like legislation that says that you can't accept my cup, like that you can't, like, oh, there's actually nothing. And I just sort of tried to keep it lighthearted. Or I would just get a dine-in, and if you don't have time to stay, get the dine-in and then pour it into your keep cup and then leave. There's so many ways to get around this. Yeah. Any other questions?
You mentioned earlier that your family tend to not give you wrapping paper anymore. How have you gone about, I guess, bringing other people in on this? I know in the past I've lived in a share house where getting people to even put plastic or aluminium cans in the recycling was a bit of a push. Like, how do you go about getting other people in your life on board?
I think just doing what you can do is probably the number, like just keep doing what you're doing is number one. And I've been frustrated so many times before, but you've just got to do what you've got to do and live that way and live by example. And then I guess, particularly if it's in your household, set things up so that it's like easy to do. Like I've got that box that's labelled with all the weird recyclable things. They all just go in there. Mum's got that one that slides out in the pantry with all the different bags and boxes in it. And it doesn't really matter which one they go in to start with. Have your compost caddy there, have a bag for your soft plastics. I guess having like a little bit of action or something that makes it eat, like with big labels or whatever it'll take to make it easy for you. And maybe your landfill bin is smaller, or it has on there landfill or, you know, the away place, or like to break down in 500 years, or, you know, just, I guess, yeah, doing what you can, continuing to do you, and try and make it easy, you know, to set that example for other people without being pushy, and without making it seem like a chore, because, you know, everyone has their own values, and it might not be as valuable, like their values might not be as valuable to you. And so you're so passionate about this thing, and others just don't really get it. So you've just got to keep going until it's like the cooler way to do things. Like I've had, you know, housemates before, and they've come like right on board with the, like, they just end up loving, like, again, the bulk food shopping or going to the farmers markets, or, you know, we'd do a trip together to somewhere, you know, to pick up a few things, but also while we're there, we'll drop off the recycling, different things like that to get people on board. Yeah, that's probably the best tips.
I think that by setting an example too, it's giving people the idea, because most people don't even think about these things. And, you know, if they see you doing it, I think, I mean, that's definitely working for me. I try not to get onto my pedestal too much. And I just lead by example. Everybody at work knows that, oh, wait a minute, we need to give that to Ursula so that she can recycle it.
Yeah.
So yeah, setting an example, I think that's definitely a big one.
That is a big one, yeah. Whether you live with them or not. I've been called Captain Planet in a couple of places that I worked, because I've implemented soft plastics recycling station, or coffee pods, or, you know, just even separating out the recycling from the landfill, which is basic. But yeah, setting that example is great. Another one I have is when I go on picnics, and there might be a few people, I'll take my whole picnic basket with all of my plates and cups and cutlery and all the things. It's way too much for me and my partner or whoever. And I'll put it all out on the table, and anyone can use that, as opposed to using the disposable stuff. Just as an example of, like, I would do that anyway, I may as well bring more. And then it sort of encourages people to, it might be a talking point as well. Yeah, that's a really good point, just setting an example. And that kind of comes back to doing you as well. Only, like, you can only do what you can. So you can't do, even your spouse, even if you've been married for 30 years, you can't do them for them. They've got to, you know, they've got to do it. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Any other wins? Has anyone else ever taken their container to something like a deli or a butcher, or any more offbeat, or do they take a bread bag somewhere? I'd love to hear if anyone else do that.
Well, if I go out and get something to eat sometimes, like for instance, sushi, I'll always take my metal container, and I've actually been given discount for bringing my own container. And my husband likes his Indian takeaway on a Saturday night. So I always bring my containers. And as soon as I walk in the door, they always say to me, have you brought your containers? They know me that well.
That's great.
I've done it at bakeries and sushi places too.
Yeah. I actually haven't tried. Yeah, I haven't tried the sushi one. And then the next thing, like with sushi, I know some people they'll take their own like soy sauce because they only have those little fish things, which can be hard. But I guess a lot of places also have just the station where you serve yourself whatever sauces you might want, which is good. It's not until you really start, if you delve into this, then you really start noticing where all the like hidden plastic little things are all over the place. Yeah. Has anyone else ever taken their container somewhere? Or does anyone else bulk food shop? Or farmers market shop? Compost? Buy secondhand, swap? Joined a buy, swap, sell group on Facebook? Or a toy library? Or I don't have kids, but I feel like a toy library would be such a huge money saver, and they always get new things to play with. And then when they're too old for it or they've gone off it, you return it.
I'm in my local buy nothing group. I haven't gotten that much, but I've given away so much stuff that people have wanted and come and taken away. And quite often you'll see neighbours, like someone will use something for a couple of weeks and then hand it on to someone else.
That's so good. What sort of things have people wanted?
What have I given away? Random storage things from the kitchen, an old desk chair, a couple of books and magazines.
Yep.
A lot of people give away food and packaging that they've like tried once, decided wasn't for them, and just hand it on, rather than sending it to a landfill.
I never would have thought of that. That's really cool. Yeah. Like, yeah, opened food. Yeah, you'd kind of think, oh, people would just throw that out destined for landfill, but that's really cool. I probably need to join my I think I joined a buy swap sell group, but yeah, the buy nothing one is such a good idea. I just I mentioned before about giving away excess jars when I've got a lot of them. I just list them on Marketplace, and it's amazing how quickly people jump on, even with the labels on and everything. I've cleaned them, but they've still got labels on and stuff. They're not necessarily pretty, but yeah, people jump on.
You're doing that. I've got to start doing that because I keep keeping all of these jars and I don't know what to do with them all.
Yeah, because I've only got one designated sort of shelf area for jars, and I'm like, if they're bursting at the seams and I'm stacking them up, I'm like, it's time. List them for free and I'll get like half a dozen responses, and people are making jam, or they've got bees that are doing honey, or they've got like lots of lemons and their daughter wants to make lemon butter. Like, I've had all sorts of things like that. And I actually got a jar of jam back in exchange for the free jars last time. So you never know what cool little things like that might happen too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't have a really tiny courtyard. I don't really have much of a backyard, but I've just got a bokashi bucket, which has been amazing because I don't have room for like a massive compost bin, and being able to just condense it down so much and then dig it out later has been incredible.
Yeah, cool. And you dig that into somewhere in your courtyard, or do you take that to a community compost area?
I do have a community compost not too far, but I just dig it into my own courtyard because I am trying to breathe some life into it. We've only been here since July last year, and since the last people that lived here, it was just kind of neglected.
Yep.
A double whammy.
Yeah, that's cool. I've had other friends that had a bokashi bin in an apartment, and you can get the juice. You get the juice out the bottom as well. And feed your indoor plants with it too. So yeah.
Hi Ash, I'm Fiona. Look, this has been fantastic to listen to you, and it's very exciting to know what you can do. It's something that I'm a passionate gardener, so I have a worm farm. And I've given many worm farms away because I've had more than one, and then I get to a point, and then people that's already established, I can go ahead and use it on the garden vegetables, herbs, whatever, and also on your plants, so to make your soil as productive as possible. But this plastics has always been something I've always had a concern about, so I'm really excited about what I can do now. So thank you.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, and I've put all my details there as well with links. So please, if you had any very specific questions, or if you think of it later, or if you then come across it and go, just reach out, because I've probably tried it. And I've tried some things that haven't worked too, like I DIY'd like some mascara, not a great idea, and some toothpaste once, and it had oil in it and blah, 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 didn't work. Like, so there's, you know, there's fails as well, and you don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
I'm at a point where I've tried like a lot of things, and I've simplified a lot, that I guess, you know, I can do webinars like this and share ideas, but I suppose if I can leave at least one takeaway, it's don't think that you've got to jump in and try all the things. It's like, maybe next time you need a few things for your pantry, you try taking along a few of your own bags and jars, you know, to the bulk food store, and just give that a go, and you'll see, you know, how easy it is. I'm sure a lot of you probably already take your own bags to the supermarket, or to, you know, farmers markets, you know, produce bags and things like that. It's basically the same, and bulk food stores welcome it. They're set up for it. And you can take your own little baggies, those little drawstring bags I had, to the Coles like scoop things as well, because they don't weigh much. They weigh the same as what their plastic bags are. So there's ways to shop less waste in supermarkets as well. So obviously choosing jars, cans, the biggest version of things if you can, and then maybe you could share it with someone else in your family or whatever as well. Lots of different little hacks, but yeah, please get in touch, anyone, if you wanted any other solutions or ideas.
Ash, you've got links in your slide deck. Could we possibly send a copy of that around with the recording after this?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I've got a PDF. I'll just check how big the file is, but yeah, I've actually, hang on, the next. So a lot of websites for places to recycle, repair, circular economy, all sorts of things on there, plus links throughout the presentation. So definitely keen to send this around so people have further resources and stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.